Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Ponytails Podcast, Season 7, Episode 6. What up? If you're hearing this, thank you. Thank you for being here. If this is your first time and you didn't sell books, oh man, let me give you a quick rundown of what we do. And if you sold books, I mean, maybe you should just stick around for it anyway, because it's a lot of fun. If you've heard this spiel already, well, good. Hear it again. Maybe you guys can memorize it like a sales talk. I don't know. But either way, if this is your first time, welcome, welcome. We here at the Ponytails Podcast interview people who sold books door to door for a company called Southwestern Advantage. Now, myself and our guests all did this program. And what this company does is they started doing this back like literally since the Civil War, where they would take and recruit college kids and take them to a different part of the country to sell books to help families with homework and with a bunch of different maybe learning to read or the SATs or whatever. And it just kind of became a thing. 100,000 people living currently have done this. It's kind of wild. And I think supposedly an estimated about 300,000 people in the history of the United States have done this, and actually in Europe as well. So it's kind of bananas. The crazy part about it, though, is that we do this from 9 a.m. or actually sometimes 8 a.m. in the morning or earlier to 10 o'clock at night or sometimes later from Monday through Saturday. So naturally speaking, you're going to get some wild stories that come from doing this across the entirety of the United States. And so what we have on the show is we have people come and tell us what they're up to now, how that experience shaped them, which is always in a different way, but also in similar ways sometimes. And we asked them about how their experience was while they were doing this program and all the things that they learned. And so naturally it leads to some funny, sometimes horrific, sometimes scary, sometimes ludicrous, sometimes outrageous stories. And so hopefully you guys enjoy that. If you guys like what you're hearing, make sure you guys check out our website, theponytailspodcast.com. You can go find us on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, all that jazz. Share it to a fellow book person if you sold books. Maybe they would like to hear this. So make sure you support us that way. So now let me talk to you guys a little bit about our guest today. Stacey Lauren is someone who was actually referred to me from my brother, who also, she's actually currently working for Southwestern. And he was being interviewed because she has a podcast herself, which is really cool. We're going to probably get into that and talk about a little bit about her podcast. So, since she reached out to me and asked me to be on her show, and I said, wait a minute, why don't we just be on each other's shows? Let's just switch it up. Let's just co-guest. And so that's how we ended up here. So Stacey sold 2 summers for the Eagle Blitz organization in 1994 and 95, in which I want to actually kind of, when we get to that point, really talk about this, because Eagle Blitz in the 90s was an interesting place as a woman to sell books, according to some of our guests that we've had on the show. So hopefully we'll get into that a little bit. She went to Florida State University and Seminoles. Let's go. And she's from Plantation, Florida. Her favorite Og Mandino scroll is number 3, I will persist until I succeed. And so when I come back, we will be on with Stacey. Thank you guys for listening. Ponytails Podcast. What's up?
Hey. Oh my gosh, I feel like such an archaic person with my podcast compared to this. This is so cool. I love everything you're doing here. It's so awesome.
Wait, what do you mean? It's the same thing. We're like video chatting.
I know, it's just mine's different. This is like really cool. It's really neat to be a part of this. So thank you.
Oh, well, man, that means a lot coming from you, because your podcast is like legit killing it. You got a ton of really cool people. I've been just like, when I can, kind of going to listen to some of the episodes. You got some people doing the really cool. Well, hold on, let's back up and let's let you explain what your podcast is about. So let's start here, and then we'll jump into some other Southwestern stuff here in a little bit. But okay, so go ahead. Please tell us, just for people listening, what your podcast is, how it started, and your journey so far with it, and then we can exchange compliments after that.
Yeah. So hey everyone, my name is Stacey Lauren, and I started my podcast this year after I exited my business. And I exited my business last year. I owned a staffing company and decided to basically write a book called Do the Thing. It was going to be a sales book. And then I decided through a lot of different experiences that it was way more than a sales book. And it was really about just doing the thing. And the thing is really anything that you want to do, whether it's start a business, start a podcast, sell a business, start a relationship, travel the world, sell books door to door, whatever you want to do. And anyway, so the podcast started in February of this year. And yeah, I'm almost at, well, I think I'll be probably hitting the 100th episode in the next few months. So it's super exciting. And yeah, I have interviewed some really amazing people. Just the structure of this is like so cool. So yeah, so that, oh, and I have a new little swag thing. It's cool. And you'll know the rhino. So
let's go.
I do the thing with my rhino.
That's sweet. That's so cool. Okay, so many questions here. So you I love the world of podcasting. I love the potential that it has for people individually and for people entrepreneurially as well. People, we can get into that here in a second. We just launched, or actually, well, by the time this airs, it would have been just off from launching what we call Unicorn Studios here on the show, and that's a production. So we produce podcasts, and it's so interesting that the podcasting world is so exciting. And it sounds like you saw part of that vision when you made that jump, or did you? Was it something that you knew that it was going to lead to this, or how was that jump for you?
No, and it's like crazy because I was basically starting this do the thing concept with the book and the podcast. And I thought that my story was really going to be everything that I did before the podcast, between selling books door to door, working for one of their sister companies, Tom James, having, the guts to co-found a business and running that for 20 years, and just all the different things that I've done. But then what I realized is my do the thing story didn't really start until after I started the podcast, because it just opens up all of these doors for you that you never even knew possible. And I don't know, I've been in this weird flow state really for the last few months of just like anything I say is just coming to me magically. Like one morning I basically had said, I really want to meet someone that travels the world. And literally I said that in the morning. And then my friend who I was going to go walking with later that day had said, oh, do you mind if I bring one of my friends? She's here in town. And she had just come from Bali. She was there for a few years and was going to Mexico and is literally living the nomadic lifestyle that I wanted to interview. And so it's just that type of thing. I mean, it's like the craziest stuff's happening, where even just yesterday? No, Sunday, I had a friend who had mentioned she wanted to meet with me and somebody that she'd been following on YouTube. I guess she stalked him on the internet or something. And, and he's into crypto. So he's teaching about crypto. And she wanted to meet with me and him for breakfast because she knows that I love crypto. And I pretty much met with him. And then it turns out we're talking about crypto. It was really interesting. He brought his wife, and then his wife starts saying what she does. And she mentioned she was an attorney who helps people in prison, basically like rehabilitate when they get out. And this is something I've been exploring since my podcast. Is I was like, oh, I really think it'd be cool to help people with the do the thing concept who are in prison. And I said that like a week before. So I looked at my friend after I found out what his wife did. And I was like, oh, this is why I'm here, And it's like things like that are just happening just out of the blue,
Okay. Yes. Tangential question on this, and then we'll be back to the podcast. Do you think that happens actually all of the time? Yo, let's get off schedule real quick. Guys, Will Metscher is so damn good at his job. He needs more people to help him with his clients. He's too fucking good. If you want to learn to help people change their lives or continue to do so, if you did that when you were at, selling books and shit, you guys need to reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with Will. He'll hook it up. But when you have the right mindset, whether it's flow state or whether it's, having positive perspective, I don't know what you want to call it, but do you think you just notice it more? Is it kind of like that thing where you buy a car and you've never seen that car before in your life, but then once you buy it, you start driving it around and you're like, oh, there's a ton of these cars on the streets. You know what I'm talking about? That never happened to you?
Like the reticular activating system. Yeah. I think it could be that. And then I interviewed with someone yesterday, actually on his podcast. This is my first week of doing other people's podcasts. So you're my second one. Oh, and I interviewed on the Dare to Dream yesterday. And this was kind of an interesting concept. He was saying, his name's Gregory, and he basically said, it's like when you have a mask on in your life, right? And you're trying to be someone that you're not. And then you uncover that mask. And then all of a sudden, like everything that's coming from like inside of you is coming to you now. It's like, I think that's really what it is. I don't know how to verbalize that better right now. He verbalized it way better than I just did, but it's like just being able to match the vibration, of who you are now. Whereas if you're if you're not being true to yourself, you're attracting whoever that is, you know?
That's bananas. But what happens if the person that's true to yourself is a negative person? Now we're getting into some dark stuff here because it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, would you say
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dahmer was being true to himself?
Yeah.
In a way? Like, like, he goes, I love eating people. And he did the crap out of that. He was really good at it, you know? Or
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just going on a tangent here. Okay, sorry. Let me back up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing with the podcast is like okay, so I didn't mention this, but I might as well tell you, Andres. So pretty much I was doing the sales book, right? That's what I was really excited about, was writing a book, because I saw with my staffing company, there were so many people that didn't want to get into sales because they were scared, right? They were like, even though it would have been so much more money from them, and they were amazing, like so good, and they could have done it. They just couldn't get themselves to do it for whatever reason. And I saw what was holding them back. And so that was the reason why I really wanted to do the sales book. But then so I'm in the middle of writing it. And then I had gotten divorced. I decided to start before that. And I had decided to start dating again. And that was when I realized there were a lot of people around me that were dating, and they just were not liking it at all. And I was having a blast. And I realized it was something with those sales principles that I have with understanding rejection, you know, going for the numbers, you know, like keeping a positive attitude. There was something to all of that that just made dating so much fun. So anyway, that was where Do the Thing really changed to Do the Thing, because I'm like, oh, this is so much more than sales. Like sales was our sport, right? With football, you're learning so many things that are like side benefits. Like I'm thinking of sports, you know, like you're learning collaboration, critical thinking, grit, you know,
and physical awareness and acuity, right? Importance of exercise. Yeah.
And with sales, you're learning how to handle rejection, you're learning goal setting, you're learning positive attitude. And so that's where Do the Thing comes.
What up, everybody? We're going to do a quick jockey spotlight with Cardinal Cedar Benefits. We're off schedule for a quick minute from the episode. Hope you're enjoying it. Take a sip of your beer. Yeah, that's good. Cardinal helps old people when they're dying because they help them with their final expense insurance. So the senior market is well taken care of for how expensive it is to die. It's a lot. Back to work.
Comes from. And so anyway, so then I had gotten COVID. And then all of a sudden I watched this show called Working Moms. It's a really good show. And they basically showed this like truth or dare challenge that these girls were doing. And they were doing like crazy stuff to meet guys. And that's when I had the idea to create a Do the Thing Dating Dare challenge. And it all stemmed from the podcast. And then the coolest thing is then I got this like expert panel of people to like be on the podcast. So it's like, it gets you to move. The podcast is the vehicle to get you to move even faster than you normally would. And then I think because you're speaking to the things that you're excited about and you're talking to people and connecting to other people, you just go, I've never moved so fast in my life with things. So I created this
It's wild.
Yeah, right. I created this dating challenge, built it in public. It was 17 days. It was in July. Everyone loved it. And then I'm doing another one right now. But I mentioned that because now I want to do a public speaking challenge in February. And I'm going to do a challenge on habits and getting fit. So it's all with the Do the Thing concept, but it's all based on the podcast. It's basically just talking to people, getting excited about what they're saying, and then these ideas just keep spurting out, and then you move faster because you're speaking to them, you know?
Yeah, and it's actionable, right? So you meet so many different people, especially with the nature of what you do and what we do. That's where like our Venn diagram of podcasting experience really is at the center of that two circles. Is we interview people who are doing crazy awesome things. And so naturally you're A, learning, B, excited about what they're saying, but C, you see all of the potential, you learn some of the things that they've learned and apply it to your own thing. And so it just accelerates so quickly. It's phenomenal. I have so many questions. Okay. Question number one, tell me more about this like dating or challenge thing. Like it started with the dating team, but now you're doing multiple things. Cause I have some experiences with these kinds of challenges and I'm curious to see kind of how they are similar and how they're different. So how did you come up with like these challenges in the first place? Where did it start and how did they go? When you say it went really well, like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. So I'd interviewed someone, her name's Alicia Reynoso, and she had sold her business last year also. It was a water bottle business. And it became successful because she ran challenges within the business. Because when you create a challenge, you're basically building like a tribe of people that really connect to the product, because they're really getting in, kind of like Southwestern did, where
Or
you're just like,
CrossFit.
yeah, or
Yeah.
CrossFit, exactly. And so yeah, so I loved what she did. We basically were talking on the interview, and then so it was podcast related, right? And talking to her about how she built her business, how she used the challenge to catapult it, and then she sold her business, and then she created a business called Challenge Makers, basically helping other people start challenges. So it planted the seed that I really wanted to like do a challenge. And I think I even mentioned it on that episode. I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to do a dating challenge. Then,
Oh, wow.
then the COVID thing happened. That's when I realized the dare thing would be good. So then I reached out to Alicia again, and I was like, hey, I'm interested. What do I need to do? And she was great. She gave me all the information. I didn't end up working with her yet because it was funny, because she's like, oh, you have to do a live Facebook video every Monday. And I was like, there is no chance I'm going to do a live Facebook video.
It's tough. Knock, knock, hello. It's lit to get fit for Sizzler, yo. So join the shred, maybe win some cash for doing it. It's a great cause. Right now, there's a competition going on, guys. Click the link below to find out more. Seth and Elevate Wellness is crushing the game of getting you ready for any sort of trip that you have coming up, or in general, the longevity of your health. So make sure you guys give them a call.
I was like, there's no chance. And so I ended up not doing it with her yet on that challenge, but I started it. I posted that I was doing it I'm in a Peloton singles over 40 group. I posted about it in there, basically saying that I want to take truth or dare and then just do dares. So take away the truth and only do dares. And then who's interested, let's meet people in the wild, basically. And then I posted in the Peloton singles over 40 group. Within like minutes, I had 120 people comment, I'm in. And then I quickly, and this is still why I have COVID, I quickly made this survey that basically said, like, what are you looking for? How can I build it? Blah, 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 like all the questions that you would ask to try to figure out the best way to design it. And then I posted that in the comments, and then 64 people filled out the survey. Like, it was crazy just how interested people were, in it. And then I created a Facebook group. I capped it at 100. I didn't want more than 100 for the first one. So I didn't promote it other than that group. I think I did 2 posts in that group to tell people I was doing it. And then I was going to do it in August. And then I posted in the group and said, and it was girls and guys, but mostly girls. And I said, I'm thinking of doing this thing in August. What do you guys think? And they're like, we want our hot girl summer. Let's do it in July. And so, and so it was in July that I was like asking them this in July. So I said, okay, whatever, I'm doing the thing, right? Like, it's not going to be perfect. Let's just do it. So I basically was building it in public as the challenge was going. And it was basically 17 days. So one day would be, like complimenting a stranger, giving a genuine compliment. Another day would be volunteering for an event. Or some kind of thing, and just giving them ways to get out of their house again, because with COVID, everyone got so stopped up. Everyone's on the dating apps. It's just, it's just been a really hermit type life. And so that's what it did. It gave them a reason with like-minded people to be able to just get out of their house and do this stuff. And then when I say it was successful, and my goal was not for people to meet people, although I know that was their goal. I really wanted them to just get out of their comfort zone and see that they could meet people a different way. I didn't realize someone could meet someone in 17 days, but many of them met people. And now in this challenge, they're like the I don't want to call them creepers because it's a positive way. Like, they're like creepers in the challenge, basically like saying, no, this works, like, do it because I met someone, kind of a thing. So
that's why. Have you had anybody get married yet? Like, sometimes people get married in 6 weeks.
No.
Okay. My third summer, I met a guy, and they hadn't been. It was like an old grandpa that you just go get a cookbook demo for, and he and his wife had been married. They met on a weekend. He was visiting friends in where I was. It was in Pennsylvania, and he was from LA. She flew to LA took a train to LA to go see him. And then they got married that weekend, and they've been married for 70. Well, and now it must be 80 years. So that was 10 years ago, unless one of them's dead, which they probably are. But
I was going to say, if they're alive, I want to interview them because I haven't.
Bananas, right?
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, "What's the secret?" He goes, "Just put up with the shit." I was
Yeah.
like, golly,
And
my
that's
parents
like,
are divorced, man. Like it's not that easy.
I know, right? Yeah. And that's the example. Those are people I love interviewing. And that's what I like about the podcast too, is like my boyfriend and I went to the Channel Islands. It's in California. A lot of people don't
Mm.
even know it's a national park that has islands north of LA. And we went kayaking, and the kayak guide was just like lit on fire. You know, like you could tell someone's like loving what she does. And so I just interviewed her on Sunday. And it's like just getting to interview people that are just loving what they do, you know, and loving their life. And that's what I really like doing. And then that, like you said, you're getting that feedback then. It's like part of your soul then when you're getting that chance to have this kind of interaction with someone.
Mhm. And I've also found, amen to all of that. I also found, at least from how it relates to ponytails in Southwestern, because that's, you know, kind of what brings us all together, and at least and the uniqueness of this show, or the niche of this show,
Yeah.
is that it doesn't matter if someone sold 35 million units or if someone sold 200 units for one summer and they just barely scraped by but finished. Everyone has had some very profound and interesting things to say, or some interesting ideas, or just a really cool story. And it's just been it's just way more reinforcement to remember that. And I don't mean to talk, you know, he's my brother. Fuck it. My brother is very still drinking the Kool-Aid, which is fine. He's a DSM. You kind of have to be, you know, like you have to be very convicted in what you're doing. So that it's kind of natural for him to just be like, all right, I'm bought into this company, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you part of the problems of that is that they have this very hard mentality of who they are, and so and what they want, and so when you come out of it, you're like, no, everyone has value. It's not just people who produce a lot. It's like everyone that you meet can tell you and teach you something amazing, even if it's like to you, maybe they're just not as quote unquote have as much money or have the status that other people have. Everyone can teach you something, and that's what I've learned doing this. So I'm sure you've had a very similar experience
Oh,
on your end
totally.
too.
Yeah,
So
it's super cool to just be able to meet people that are just doing all kinds of things that are aligned with themselves. I mean, I'm even like, do the thing is like, even someone quits their job that they didn't like, you know, because a lot of people get stuck, they stay stuck, you know, in their job. And we talked about that on your interview, where it's like almost that 2 years too long thing, you know, and I'm like really wanting to talk to people that are making that decision because they want to, not because other people are telling them not to.
yeah, and because ultimately you got to trust, if you know yourself well enough, that then you should, if you strive to know yourself well enough, then you'll know when it's the right time to leave something and when it's not. So absolutely. Ooh, you should, if you guys haven't listened to Rachel Schwann's episode, there was one right before this, highly recommend this. We talked about this specifically because she just left this last summer, and she left a couple of weeks earlier than she was intending to, because she had to move on to the next job, which was imperative that was like, it was now or never type of thing for that job. And she quit, but there was a little bit of guilt when she did that, you know. And so I was telling her, I'm like, no, you know, if you know yourself well and your intentions were good, and now you're doing a thing that was your career that you've always meant to do, it's okay. Like, you got to
Yeah,
take care of
I
you.
think that's amazing when you can go with like your own instinct and not have to hear everyone around you and say, what should I do? What should I do? But follow your own gut. That's gold right there.
Oh, amen. Oh, so okay, so let's dig into what do the thing actually in your when you so people can go, okay, what thing? What do you mean by do the thing? What is this principle that you talk about? What have you learned from all your guests and your journey so far, even with the podcast? What is if you had to tell it to a 5-year-old, what is do the thing?
Yeah. So, something I've been doing with the interviews is I've been uncovering a formula for how people do the thing. So, finding the common patterns that everyone does when they're doing something, whether it is starting a business, starting a new job, getting married, whatever that thing is to them. And it's almost like I uncovered the matrix. It's been like crazy because once I uncovered the formula, of how people do the thing. So it's like, hold on. It's it's six pieces of the formula. I should run. I uncovered it like 2 weeks ago when we interviewed is when I
Yeah.
first realized what it was. So it's only been a few weeks, but yeah, so there's basically 6 pieces, and it's how everyone is able to do the thing. And then what happened is then I was like, wait, I wonder who else uses this formula. And that's when I realized, going back to book days, that Southwestern really used this formula. They just don't talk about it. You know who else uses it? AA uses it. And like 12-step programs, they use it. They don't talk about it, but they just have it incorporated. There's really good gyms use it. There's some gyms you go to and you just show up and you give them your money and you never go back, right? But there's others that they have a specific like system for how they do it, and they basically are using these pieces. They just, no one talks about it. So the book is basically going to blow it all up, and everyone's going to know how to do whatever they want.
I was gonna say this is. I remember thinking when you asked me that, and I was like, I wanted to say Southwestern, but honestly, like I feel like people who have understood success, they describe the same formula that you're describing, but just in a different way. And the way that you explain it is just so much more straightforward. I guess more accessible for people than this complication of some of the other things that we got trained on. You know what I'm saying? So it's such a cool gift that you're giving people to be able to provide them with this foundational, tangible way of overcoming fears and overcoming doubts. And damn.
Yeah. And the coolest thing is I got to interview, I think you interviewed Ron Alford too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Southwestern Consulting. Yeah, I interviewed him, and he was one of my consultants when I was with my staffing company. He was coaching me on a lot of different stuff. He's amazing. And I saw on LinkedIn, he posted something about his daughter, Hartley. She's 10 years old. And he basically was saying on the LinkedIn post that she had just stopped eating sugar for 28 days. And so I asked to interview her and I got to interview his daughter. And it was like literally like the formula was used. And again, they don't call it formula, but like all these pieces were used in the way that she did it. And so she stopped eating sugar for 28 days. And then she was also talking about how she was going to run a 5K, and she was basically following those same steps. So yeah, so it's super cool once you kind of like uncover it and you get to see how you can really do the thing.
That's legit. Oh, so cool. The podcasting world is such an interesting way to learn and meet people. Is there anything outside of just besides like doing the thing and these success principles that you've learned, like from a technical standpoint? Maybe there's someone out there that's like, I want to start a podcast. Like what, how can I do this? What have you learned outside of that during this journey?
Yeah. Do you mean like in terms of how to start how to start a podcast?
Yeah, like I maybe I should say this. So we had Michael Bador on here, and he used to work for the radio station. So for him, it came a little more natural to just kind of jump into a podcast and start doing that, right? But like when I started, and we were talking about this right now, maybe this is a better way to ask this: is you're doing this for fun right now, but we were talking right before we started recording, like, hey, what's the goal of the podcast? Are you trying to monetize it? What are you trying to do? Because we both started this as a hobby. And now it feeds my dogs. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how for you, what have you learned, and what are you learning? What's for the podcast itself? What's kind of like the things that you are picking up as you go along of developing it, growing it, getting in touch with your fans?
Yeah, no, so it's been crazy. Can I share a post that I just did today in my little dating dare group? Can I read it to you? Or
yeah, absolutely. Or is it absolutely? Is there? Or I think you meant like link. If you have a link, I can put it on the screen. If you just want to read something, you can totally read.
Yeah, I was just going to read it just because I literally like this morning posted this because I'm this passionate about people doing like a podcast. Let me just see if I could find it really quick. Oh yeah. I just said, so basically I'm encouraging the people in my Do the Thing Dating Dare group to start a podcast. I mentioned it the first challenge, and it was too high for them. They couldn't get there. And this time around, people are saying they're interested, right? Because they've already started to expand their comfort zone. So this was my post. I said, this was this morning, an hour ago, actually. So it's funny you should ask this question. I was like, so we have some people interested in starting a podcast. Yay. Please comment here if you would like to be part of the Zoom we were going to do with the Callcast founder, Adam. A lot of people think a podcast costs money, and it's totally free, an amazing way to connect with yourself deeper and encourage you to connect with others. It sort of gets you off the couch. I recently decided to join a group of podcasters so that I could have the M part of the I'm game formula, my people, and we'll share what I wrote here. Please comment if you're interested. I will tag those of you that I know have expressed interest. And then I wrote, my podcast and my podcaster group, just to give you context with what I love. So this was my post that I put in the group. I said, just to give you context with what I love about podcasting. I sold my business last year, and I was going through an entire identity breakdown. I was messing around exploring what was next for me. I started my podcast, Do the Thing. It's funny how I thought all of the stuff I did prior to me starting my podcast was my Do the Thing story. but realized that after I started my podcast is when my do the thing story really starts. I love how podcasting gets you to explore all of your heart's desires, and you can connect with interesting people and concepts that you want to explore more. You basically get to live in the curiosity of life. Since starting this podcast in February of this year, so many new doors have opened for me, and it's been fun following the breadcrumbs of life. And then I basically just said I joined this group so I could be around other people who get it too. And so, yeah, now I have to find you again. Sorry, because I got off
No,
of you.
it's all good. Yeah, that's such a cool, it's such a cool thing. February, and it's such a journey already. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
And so, yeah, so to answer your question, I haven't really like figured out how I really came out of an identity crisis, because when I sold my business, I just, sorry, I'm just trying to find, oh, you're on Chrome. That's what's happening. Okay, I found you.
Yeah. Welcome back.
I'm back. Yeah, when I sold my business, I did that for 20 years, right? I had 60 employees, internal employees, and then 600 field employees. So it was like literally, it was just so crazy. You know, my whole life was like that business, you know? And then when I sold, I just didn't even know who I was anymore. It was really crazy, you know, kind of maybe like when you leave Southwestern and you're so embedded in that, you know, you have to go through that identity shift. And so, and like, it was almost like the people that worked there were kind of my family. A lot of them had worked there 17 plus years, you know? And so it was a lot. And so then the podcast kind of reignited, like it got me back into who I am again. I don't know if it makes sense, but it was like just a crazy time. And so at first there was no money thought. It was just me just doing it for fun, exploring the concept of the book. And that was pretty much it. And actually, it's kind of a funny story with the book, with how the podcast even started. As I was writing the book, I met with a book strategist, and she basically was like, I need your struggle story. I need the story of when you didn't do the thing and how you're doing the thing now. And at that time, I had no struggle story. Every time I've wanted to do the thing, I've done the thing. And so, because I think I had the Southwestern experience, you know, and so she's like, well, your book's going to suck, basically. And she's like, you need to have a struggle story. And so then, you know, she's like, interview 10 people and like find out how they do the thing. Maybe they had a struggle story. We can use that for the book. And so that's pretty much how I started interviewing people, because I was like, well, if I'm going to be interviewing people without, like, I want to have it just recorded just in case I decide to put it on a podcast later. And then it was like hard to do, because the first one I did was video, and I ended up like being really critical of myself, you know, and like saying I was terrible at it and all the stuff that you're not supposed to say. and then I sat on it. Oh, I even shared it with my mom, and my mom, God, I hope she's not going to ever listen to this, but she basically is like, I don't get it. You're like, what is this interview even about? You know, like, I don't even understand it. So my mom hated it.
Oh man.
And then I sat on it for like, I don't even know, that was in August of 2021. So then I didn't end up recording anymore until finally, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I'm like, let me just see about this podcast thing, because maybe that'll motivate me. And that's when I Googled how to do a podcast from a phone, because I'm like, if I could just record it really easy, then maybe that'll at least get me excited. And then that's when I talked to Adam, who is the founder of Callcast, which is the platform I'm based on. And he's amazing, and the platform's amazing. And what happened then? Oh, and then he's like, so if you don't like video, don't do video. Like, don't do anything that's going to bottleneck you from getting going, you know, pretty much. So that's why mine's more scrappy, because I just have it super scrappy right now just to be able to do it. You know, eventually, I love the way yours is set up though. So I'm going to probably swipe and deploy some of that stuff. Sure. But, and then it was cool, because then I called him after the first like 2 interviews, and I was like, I don't think I'm a good interviewer, you know? And he was like, he was really good. You know, he basically had like all my limiting beliefs he was able to answer. You know, he was like, you know, no one's.
Yo, ponies. Off schedule moment. Everybody loves Property Brothers. Some people for the looks, some for real estate. If you're the second or both, you should become a Property Brother or sister over at Southwestern Real Estate. Can't promise that you'll look good, but you'll sell a lot of houses. Okay, back to work. What up, everyone? Off schedule story, really quick. The average agent at Cardinal Cedar Benefits earns about $5,000 per week. It's pretty badass. So, on that note,
really good when they first start. You just got to keep doing it, right? And we learned that from Southwestern. Like, it's knocking another door, you know. And so that helped me. And then the more I kept going, oh wait, and there was one more thing. This was cool. is like 3 weeks in, he had introduced me to this woman, Esprit, and she was running a challenge, like a cohort for people that wanted to start a podcast. And so since I had been already recording, nothing was published yet, but I had at least been recording and I had 10 episodes under my belt. He was like, she'd like you to speak to her group because they all want to start a podcast. And so then I was able to speak to them. And I think by like teaching other people, that like synced it in even more, right? And Southwestern does a good job with that too. It's like,
Yes.
once you're able to like reinforce what you're learning and then seeing that you can make an impact, that like helped me keep going. And then it just was like wildfire after that. I think I just was in total like movement mode because it was so much fun.
Absolutely. I love that story. That's your origin story right there. I was going to ask you, how did it all start coming about? And I think there's so many lessons there, right? Just go, just do it, just jump. It's going to be uncomfortable. And yeah, you're probably not going to do so hot. I mean, sometimes I look back because we all have these doubts, right? Everyone has doubts. Every single person I've talked to on the show, every person that I know that's successful, they've all at some point mentioned, yeah, I had doubts. I mean, there's days I woke up and I'm like, maybe and I do that. I wake up and I'm like, is this really important? Like, are people really fucking listening? Like, does it even matter? And then I was like, it's not about that. It's just about trying to help others and help other people feel like feel heard, right? Have their experience be open and have them share what they have, learned, what they've noticed, what's important to them. And that's important. So that then I go, okay, that's good. And then I go, but we're not getting better. There's so many different places I want to be. And we're not, and then I go back and look at my first episode and it's like, oh man, we've grown. It's just so crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
It's so fun. Yeah. It's documented growth. You can see the documented growth because it's public and you're exposing yourself in a way, so.
Yeah, it's like, it's really
cool.
The ultimate do the thing, right? It's by not being perfect, being imperfect, but continuing on and doing it anyway. And, that's kind of and that's the message that the podcasters, when I spoke to that group of 70 people, that's what they resonated with the most. And that's what got them to move, because what gets people to not do something? It's because they're scared that they're not going to be good. But who cares? Like, when you're dead, is that going to be something you're going to talk about? Is that, you wish you didn't do that thing because you weren't good at it? No, you're going to talk about the things that you didn't do that you wanted to do, Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you help them refocus on their why, which ultimately is such a big part, right? So it's like, what is going to be important is one of those people is going to have a conversation with someone else, or maybe they'll say something on their podcast that someone else is going to listen to. And it was important for that one person to have heard that because that inspired them to go do the thing. Right. And so, like, I don't know. It's on our end. Maybe hopefully we've had 160 some odd episodes. Hopefully someone on here felt heard, or maybe they learned something about themselves while being on the show as a guest. But maybe even better is if someone who listens to this heard something somewhere, somehow, and it just really inspired them to do that thing, And so that's the why. Then it doesn't matter. It's not about you if it's good or not, or if I'm dressed nice, or if my show has this or that.
Yeah.
What matters is that you're doing it for the right reasons.
Oh, totally.
And
the other thing huge. I realized too, it's like like in the past you would do something and it like dies there. Like now it's like things continue. Like, here's an example. I just thought of this as you were talking. Another thing my boyfriend and I did, we went on a hot air balloon ride, and the pilot was like super cool, just like so fun. And the whole business was really, I love when I see businesses like completely like red carpet, just like from beginning to end. And you can tell that they really thought out. And so anyway, after we were done, like, I think like a week later, I'm like, I really want to interview that guy, because he's doing the thing. Like, how do you go in a hot air balloon? There's nothing like there and you're flying it, And so I got to interview him, and he's actually this like, not actually, I mean, he's like this amazing person where he had a business, a tech business that he sold 10 years ago. Then he opened up a winery, or bought a winery, and decided he didn't like that, sold the winery, and then started this hot air balloon business. And so then I got to interview him. We were talking about change being hard, and like why people don't want to try something new. And it turns out he's in a leadership program with Stanford. He's in his 60s and in a leadership program at Stanford. And he then, after the interview, sent me a bunch of articles on change, and like how to get people to change. And those were great. But then also I remembered I have a friend that lives in Temecula that has a wedding venue really successful, Hawk Ranch, if anyone wants to get married. and and he anyway, and he's always interested in new things. So I connected these two guys together, and now they met, and now the hot air balloon guy is going to be potentially, they're working on it and talking through some of the details, but taking up the guests and hot air balloon ride on like some bungee thing. And it's going to be this whole experience. So just by me doing this thing, interviewing this guy, you know, and then finding out all this information, I now have research on change that I can use for my book or whatever else I want to do with it from talking to him. And now all of these guests at a wedding are going to potentially go on a hot air balloon ride. So anyway, the whole thing, it's crazy to me when I think about it.
You know what? Okay, a couple things on that. This is a great conversation. Thank you for being here. Eliav Cohen is someone you need to meet, or I don't know if you know Eliav. He's a bookman. He also owns a hot air balloon business up in Seattle, or near Seattle, outside of Seattle, and he is awesome. So Eliav's cool.
Oh, cool.
A very similar story. He also is an AI, really interesting guy. He was like our 9th episode or something.
Oh, great.
And so that's one thing. The second thing is, I think I can, if I can put like a bow or succinctly talk about like the thesis of what we just said, or what we've been talking about, what we're trying to say in this episode is, for this chunk anyway, is in Southwestern, they always taught you that, or at least I remember this quote, I heard it from someone in Southwestern. You hear so many quotes, you forget who to give credit to, but somebody at some point said that in 5 years, you're going to be the same person, plus the books you read and the people that you meet. And by doing this, you're so naturally meeting so many people and so many cool people that it's no wonder that it changes you so quick. I mean, we've been on, so November 29th will be our 2-year anniversary, like of the first episode airing. And we had 160 some, by that point we'll have 100 and probably 175 episodes or something.
Wow.
So, and some of them have been more than one person in an episode, so it's not just one-on-one. So I've probably met 200 people doing this that I didn't know before, who I got to know for a couple hours and have that book person connection, which is in a weird way shared trauma connection, you know. so let alone the people that I've met from like traveling to alumni reunions that we put on, or Bizzler that we put on, that a Sizzler trip, the alumni Sizzler trip. So it has to be more like 300 people. And so no wonder I've grown, or I feel like I've grown personally a ton, because I've hung out with 300 cool book people doing awesome shit. So yeah, naturally, in 2 years, it's going to change you.
I love that quote. I think that's so good. And that really speaks to, I think that is a really good summation of it. And it's really true too. And the other thing with when you're interviewing someone in a podcast, you get to know them so much deeper than you would like just talking to them in real life, because when do you ever get to just sit there and ask someone questions for an hour and a half?
It's like, ask me anything. Okay, cool. Like, let's do it. And it's like, and people know, I mean, we're just for people who are listening, like you might go scroll through our episode list and be like, 3 hours for some of these. It's like, yeah, we don't mean, it's not like we said, like you and I didn't sit down and go, all right, we're going to find a way to fill in this space for 2.5 hours or whatever. No, we just said, we're just going to talk until it feels natural to stop. And let's just see where the conversation goes. We did no pre-approach. We didn't, we met each other 2 weeks ago. Right? And so that's so cool, because you know that the setting is, we're going to be open. We're going to be here to be open. That's the whole point. And we're going to do it for a couple hours. So yeah, in that amount of time, you're going to find out some really cool shit.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm in a mastermind. I've been in one for 4 years, and really incredible people are in the group. And it's funny, when I interviewed each of them on my podcast, everyone in the mastermind got to know them on a whole nother level, even though we've all known each other 4 years. Yeah. I think there's something to that, right? When you get to just ask someone questions like without knowing, and with like what you said, where you're really just able to dive in. So start a podcast, you guys.
Yeah. And here's another thing that I've learned too. This is like Marty Pyle was the episode that taught us this. So normally the structure, we used to go, let's just go back to the beginning. How did you get into Southwestern? What, when did you leave? And then what are you doing now? That used to be the way we used to do it until Marty Pyle. And Marty's episode is great. He's telling us about his Southwest career, and it's like good old book fashion stuff. And then he was pretty excited. We had talked actually a couple of times beforehand. He was super fun. And it was great. And then when we started talking about what he's up to now, about his passion, because he got to retire. So he's like, now I get to do whatever I want. And he started doing art. and the conversation went from great to excellent because all of a sudden he was able to talk about what he was currently doing in his present moment and where his passions were. And it's so cool what you get to learn from people. Like right here, I'm talking to you and we're talking about podcasting and helping people grow. Yeah. Yesterday, Rachel, she's a kindergarten teacher and we were talking about the adventures of that world, right? Before
Yeah.
at some point we had Nate Taborg and he does art with fire and wood. It's like, what? Like every episode's so different. And it's never boring. It's always so exciting because people get excited to talk to you about the things that they love, and it's so fun to get to ask them about it and to be interested in it. So yeah, definitely, like you said, start a podcast.
Well, yeah, when you get to talk to people about, and this is real life too, like when you can talk to people who are lit on fire by what they're doing, and the things that they're experiencing or what they're not doing. Like I love when I talk to someone that just quit their job and they're not doing anything, but they're just lit up by the fact that they made that decision, and I
They're
just,
like,
I
I'm
love
free.
all of that. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so true. It's really fun. And I've also found that it helped me become a better listener. I still it got so long to go on this because I'm a terrible listener, but it's made me stop talking and just be like, all right, you say now things. And you
Yeah.
talk.
I agree.
Oh.
I've been actually using this as a tool for that too. And like, the reflective listening and all that stuff where you're able, because I've been even studying authentic relating. And so all this stuff that I've been doing with communication, it's been helping with that too.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Oh my gosh. So cool. So how can people find your book? How can people find your podcast? How can people connect with you about this specific part of an aspect of your life?
Yeah. So the best way is just, my website is dothethingpodcast.com. And then, my email is, you could do this Stacey, at StaceyLaurenLive.com. You'll probably put in the show notes. I don't need to, but it's the Stacey as an E. And then, feel free to email me. And I'm about to get on social media. I'm not on yet, but if you connect with me that way, I'll be able to share with you on all that.
Heck yeah. I love it. I love it. Do you mind if we wind the clocks back really quick and talk about some Southwestern stuff?
Sure.
Cool. This is usually the segment. It's like, what are you up to now? And then it's like, okay, this has been great conversation. Let's do some book stories. Okay. So we had on the show notes and on the intro 2 summers, 94 and 95. So let's rewind to 94 or 93 fall, depending on when you were recruited. How the heck did you hear about this? How did you get into this crazy thing? And I do have follow-up questions about the 90s and women selling for Eagle Blitz, which we can get into if you want to, but let's just go back. How did you hear about this?
Yeah, and I love that you know that because there are some stuff with that, with the women part. But yeah, so I put myself through school and I was bartending, waiting tables. It just wasn't enough money. So I was looking for a quicker way to make money. And I had found in a newspaper.
Oh, nice. You were a newspaper
old
person.
School. Yeah, super old school. There were 2 jobs in there. One was selling cutting, I don't even know what it was, scaling fish, I think in Alaska. And then the other one was selling bookstore to door. And I remember looking at both and trying to decide which one I should explore. And I picked obviously selling bookstore to door. I never really even looked into the Alaska one, although it sounded cool, but I just didn't trust myself like technically. Cause I mean, that's like, you have to use your hands and my eyes aren't that great. So
that's one of those where you don't want to suck at the beginning.
Exactly.
You want to be good right away.
That
one you want to be like, I need to know what I'm doing. This one, it sounds like I have room to fail. If you fail the other one, you lose a finger.
Yeah. And so then we went to so I think the first meeting, it's funny, I still remember it, but like we were it was some kind of conference room at the school. I feel like there were like 20 people that were there. And then most of them were guys. There was just me, I think, and maybe one other girl in there who ended up being my roommate. And they talked about Southwestern and what it was. And I was just like, why not? It sounds great.
Wild. So wild. And when you're looking into this, and I always like to say, because people sometimes say, oh, it was the money and you need to pay for school, so that's valid, or it was like the travel, right? But do you think inside, deep down, there was another reason that was calling out to you for this, or was it strictly, yep, I gotta get paid for school?
I'm not sure. I mean, I did have some experience. Like I was a clown in high school. And so I've done
Hang
weird.
on, wait,
I-
wait. We're not just gonna gloss over that, unless this is a story for another time. But wait, what? What?
No, this is a really random story. It's like
Yes, please.
my
Yes.
best friend and I were like we were prank calling people basically, and through the yellow pages. So we're in the yellow pages. I don't remember why we were prank calling people, but we're prank calling them. and
Wow.
And one of them ended up being a clown company. And I don't remember what I said as a prank call. Like, I don't remember like what the words were out of my mouth, but whatever it was, she liked how I sounded on the phone. And she's like, you know what? You would be great, like for this clown job that I have open. Are you looking for work? So she flipped the script on me.
Yes, she clowned you.
She clowned me. And so, yeah, so then I went and she taught me how to like do the animal balloons and paint faces and all the stuff. And it was really good money. So it was like just different. I went on the weekends and dressed up as a clown. Sometimes I would dress up as like, Big Bird and some other stuff, but it was mostly a clown.
Oh my!
And
Did you have a clown name?
no, I didn't. I don't remember it if I did. I don't remember any like
Ah.
specifics other than it being a really weird time. I even had a rabbit like in the magic little box that like the whole thing is crazy actually, but
Hold on.
yeah.
There's so many questions. I'm sorry to derail the entire recruiting story, but you can't just be like, I was a clown in high school. But anyway, what? No, you can't just be like that. Hold on. So you clown, how big were your shoes?
Yeah, so it's funny. I don't
How does
remember.
this all
Yeah.
work? What is the
I don't
like a
think
typical work day of a clown look
the
like?
typical
I
work
don't
that
know.
is you're spending most of your time putting like the makeup on. I mean, back then, I'm sure that they have better ways to do it now, but back then unless you were Big Bird, you're spending the most. And
That's
this is
so
in
awesome.
Florida, so it's hot, and so
Yeah.
like you're putting your makeup on and then you drive to the place and you're only there like an hour. So the actual job, but you made like $250, so it was worth it. And this is back in the,
Wow.
90s. So it was pretty good money, for back then. And so anyway, yeah, and it was fun. I don't think I was very good. I don't know if I was very good, but I mean, it was fine. It was fun. I did it for like a year, so I'm just used to doing random stuff. And I worked for this other company. I think they've gone out of
That's
business now, but
cool.
Centura Creations. This was in high school also, and my last year in school, I went to community college. So I really didn't go to high school my senior year. It was just community college, but I still got my high school degree. Anyway, it was weird, but anyway, so that's why I was doing random stuff. But anyway, Centura Creations, where you sell fake perfume to
Yep.
people, and so I would sell like it to hospitals. Back then, you can go in the airport and walk into the, where the gate is, and you could like just hang out
Right.
with people, and you weren't really allowed to do it. So I did get my picture taken a few times for like not supposed
No
to be
way.
there. Yeah, and you'd go to a
Now when
mall.
you fly, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you'd go your best place would go is the check cashing store. You'd go to the parking lot, and sell there to people as they were coming out of the check cashing
My
store. So yeah.
gosh,
So I've just had
that's
a really
crazy.
random.
Well, and Centura, that was like a Mary Kay type of company, right? Like it was like something like that, wasn't it? Or
It wasn't network marketing. It was more just direct sales, because they had the whole, like,
oh,
that
okay,
was my first time that I heard a bell ring, and it was very exciting, having been like
right.
during growing up, I was kind of like always never really felt like I had a place, like I was bad at sports, I was bad at a lot of things.
Mm.
And so like once I realized like this concept of hearing no is all I need to do to like hear a bell ring and get people excited about what I did. I was like a dog, basically.
Let's go.
And yeah. And so, yeah, it just was a really great, I mean, that's something I'm working through now is like, now I'm 49, right? And I don't want to be excited about a bell ringing. So I'm getting excited about my own stuff, no matter what it is that I'm doing, whether it's, so it's definitely some work that I've had to do since then. But yeah, but it was an exciting time. And so, yeah, I did that job.
Wow.
And so I think when the book job came, it was like, oh, I've already kind of done something like this before, just not relocating to another state.
That is so cool. Well, first of all, I'm so intrigued. That is so fun. And being a clown has to be because there's an aspect of that that's so interesting of like just that's such a interesting part of our community, and it's depicted in so many different ways. And so I was watching Modern Family, and one of the characters, what's his name? one of the guys, he's a clown, Furbo the clown, and so they make a lot of like really cool insights on the life of people who do that for a living, and it's such an interesting world. So that's awesome that you did that. Get out of your comfort zone. I mean, let's talk about that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then you went and sold perfume. So you, by the time you get to Southwestern, this is not like the sales part of it. That's not uncomfortable for you whatsoever, because you're used to being like, all right, this is just something that not everybody does, but it's going to be great and it's going to help me learn and it's going to pay me. And so that's this is one of my favorite origin stories. This is so funny. So, okay, so you're there. Where did you go? How was sales school? How was that first? I always like talking about first summers because that's the one that like really bites you. What was that like? What was it? Where did you go? Tell me the story of your first summer.
Yeah, so sales school is amazing. I've never been in that type of environment where it was just like so many people and the excitement and the synergy and the electric that you felt. Like my body felt like singed, and it was just a very exciting time. And then the pony story, Mortally had, like that stuck with me my whole life pretty much. And so that was like my sales school experience. And then we went to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I think it started with you knocking on doors to find a place to live. So I mean, they started, I don't know if they're still doing that, but that was like crazy because you're like, just like, oh my God, like that was your initial thing. And you know what, how cool that is to do that. And now that I look back, because I'm writing the book now, so I'm seeing like all these things that have made such an impact, like having to knock on a door to find a place to live. I think that's where that's where my risk assessment in life has really just not even been a thing, because like you always, now that you know how to sell, right? Or like, and it doesn't even have to be that you have to be good. You just have to be able to hear no a lot because someone's going to buy from you, whatever you're selling, and believe in what you're selling, right? Like those are the two kind of things for me, at least. I have to believe what I'm selling and know that it's a service to the person that I'm selling it to. I can't just sell anything. And then also hearing no enough. And I think the fact, once I understood that concept of being able to like make money and then also find a place to live, no matter where I was, it just, nothing scares me with that type of stuff anymore. It's just, I've just been able to go after whatever it is.
Yeah, because it's hard to be nervous when your attitude's on service, that old adage of Southwestern. So if you have that aspect locked down and morally good, and you know that you can help people, there's nothing wrong with going, okay, well, I should get paid for this because I'm helping people and I'm good at it. And it makes sense that I get paid. And it makes you feel a lot better when you sell it. It makes you feel a lot better when you don't. It's a wonderful perspective. And that's something people don't understand. When you tell people you're in sales, they're like, sales, they think like, a lot of friends of mine that didn't sell books, they're like, oh, you must be really persuasive. I go, no, not at all. That's not what sales is. That's manipulation. We don't do that. Sales is when you are good at being told no. And when you can give someone a genuine buying atmosphere, when you're like, hey, if you don't buy, it's fine. I just appreciate the sit down, because even if you say no, I know at some point there's a yes coming. So that's okay. I'm not going to sell you. You can sell ice to an Eskimo. No, I can't. They don't need it.
Yeah.
That's not how we do it.
Yeah. And they don't realize, like, when you're saying sales, you're not even meaning like selling, right? So I interviewed my friend in my mastermind, the one that has the wedding venue, but he also exited his business last year too. And he's grown up in sales, right? So that's kind of his history. And I love the way he frames sales. He calls it the #1 service job in the world. And so like with that frame, it really like, because people think it's sales, but it's not. It's really knowing how to service, right? And then his brother came on my podcast also. He wrote the book, Live an Extraordinary Life. And it's actually similar for those of you guys listening that read Rhinoceros Success. It's similarly like written in like, it's really easy to read, but it's so impactful, just like that book was for me. And so definitely get that book, but I'm pitching other people's books right now. But anyway, he wanted to be a professional football player when he was younger. And this is his brother. And so that's all he wanted. And so when he was in college, he was playing football. No one came to pick him up like for professional football. So his brother is like, well, why are you just waiting for people to come get you? Go after it, And so he taught him the concept of dialing for dollars. And, basically then he started calling all the professional teams to try to get placed. When that didn't work, he went out in person to all these different places. He did end up getting hired by Arena Football. He played with Kurt Warner. And then when Kurt got taken, and that he went on his path, that's when David decided to leave football and he went into corporate world, and now he's into coaching. But his son is being coached by Kurt Warner. He's a senior and he's a quarterback. And so it's just crazy how like just dialing for dollars now has set on this whole path of like him understanding the concept. David didn't sell, right? He just understood the concept of hearing no and the value of rejection. And so there's just so much in that sales mindset that I think is cool.
That is such a good gold right there. Just take this bit, gold. This is what's going on Instagram. Man, okay, so back to you. So you're knocking for doors for a place to live.
Yeah. So I knocked on one, and then I knocked on a bunch, and then one of them was like, "Oh, I don't have a place that you could live, but there's a church that we had that I go to that offers a lot of this kind of stuff." So then we got a referral for the church, and then Nancy was my roommate at the time, and we rented a room from someone that we met through the church. And I still remember this lady. She was the coolest mom, Beverly. And her son, I don't remember her husband's name, but her son's name was Dan. And every day she'd make us sweet tea and just really was very encouraging and supportive. It was $75 a month for us to share this room in her house. And it was just the perfect place for us to be because, like she just like loved on us, in the very few times we were there, but like she loved on us in those moments,
Wow. That is so cool. I love it. And then you went out. So this must have been a trip because you're from Florida. So the summers in Florida are brutal. Summers in Grand Rapids, right? Michigan? Grand Rapids, Michigan. That has to be a bananas experience of how hot it is. Like it's just so chill. It must be beautiful.
I don't know. I remembered it being hot, but I remember it raining and I remember it being hot, but who knows? Yeah. You're also fair. Outside for like 14 hours a day. So I think anything would get hot after a while.
Yeah. I just remember I was selling in Florida, some solar in Florida a couple of years back, and I was like, this is hot. And we sold in Arizona too. And I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, I was in Vermont my first summer, or New York my first summer, upstate. So
oh wow.
I'm like, I forgot to appreciate that because it's so nice.
Yeah.
So that's wild. And we can get into obviously book stories of things that you remember as well too. So feel free to interject those wherever as they come up. But I wanted to for sure touch on the culture of masculinity and really misogyny that we've had on record. We've had people on the show, not just one person. We've had multiple people, sometimes on the air, sometimes off the air, talk about how in Eagle Blitz, particularly, some pockets within it, or I don't know exactly. I don't want to assume because I wasn't there, but there were a lot of difficulties being a woman in that environment because it was just kind of not open, I guess, to that at that point in time. Did you experience any of this, or was it different for you?
There just weren't that many women. Like in the years that I sold, the first year, second year, there were more women because I recruited women. But like the first year, it was really just me, Nancy, and then Katrine Lacroix. It was just the three of us. And so
wow,
out of all the guys,
so crazy.
I never felt any different other than I felt a little invisible, but I've had that, but until I sold, then once you succeed, then everyone, then it's fine,
Yeah.
So it's more just, I think it's just anytime you're with people that are like where, how do I word this in a way that, I think it's just, it could have been just how I felt. I don't know if it was necessarily the way it was, but I just definitely didn't feel like I had a place until I was able to show what I was doing. Once I started selling and I didn't quit, then it like changed a little bit.
Yeah, we had Kay Wright on the show. She started, I think, in 92, and she had to like beg to get in. Like she had to like prove it to them that she could. Once she got in, she sold a lot of books, and they were like, "Oh, it's just a fluke." Then they went and did like interviews, and this could be isolated incidents within Eagle Blitz. I know it wasn't necessarily happening as much on the other organization because this is when like Yvette Keister and like some other badass book chicks were selling up in the Nebraska, Michigan area. Yeah. But Kate Wright, she remembers when they were doing like surveys at classrooms, and they would take people's, like, you could get the names. They would throw all the girl names away.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no,
And
I
so she
didn't
had
hear
to,
any of that.
she
Wow.
dug them out of the trash can, and she'd be like, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "Women can't sell books. They can't teach men to sell books." Like, they said that to her face, and she named the manager. And it's a crazy. You should go listen to that episode. It's crazy.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we've had her on twice, and both times she told us the story in different levels of detail. But the first one was bananas. What up, ponies? One quick jockey spotlight over to Cardinal Senior Benefits. I want to shout out my girl Greta. If you guys want more information on what it's like to be a single person and working for a badass company where you can earn a ton of money, how flexible is it, Andres? Well, go check it out. Greta's episode is number 85. But let me tell you, it's pretty flexible. It can touch its own toes. And anyway, so I don't mean to like bring this up or anything, but she did say that, eventually it started getting better and more women, but she was like the only one in her org. And so people understand and get perspective. This is back in the day when, like, in the 90s, when there was thousands and thousands of people selling books per summer. It was like, it wasn't just like today there's like 1,200 book kids. Like, or maybe, I don't know, 2,000 of them. It was like there was 3,000 people at sales school that week or whatever, there was like a ton of people selling books. And so to be one of few females, it must have felt super, super intimidating. Did you ever feel like when you made it that there was like an aspect of you had to prove it to yourself for that reason? Like, did that ever drive you, or did you not notice it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something and again, I don't know how much of it is from books or how much it is me, but I always just feel like I have to do it in order to like feel accepted, And so that's work that I'm doing now, because I don't want that anymore.
Right.
I want to just be able to be who I am and not care about if I'm good at something, and to be accepted in that way. But back when I was 22,
Sure.
like I definitely felt a difference, from the time that I got to sales school, to like in the middle of the summer when I was doing well, and showing that I wasn't leaving. And not even the middle, really. Like after week 3, it started to like, once anyone sees that you're working hard. My daughter, actually, she just joined this year. She started her high school football team. She's on a high school football team. And, like there's all guys and she's one of 3 girls. So it's kind of, I see her kind of doing it where she, once they see her busting ass, then like, it's not even a question, right? Like, you're immediately accepted. That's all they care about, is that you're going to work the same. I think it's a little bit different, I don't know if it's different that you're a guy and you're not busting ass, but I think people just have a better way of accepting you when you're working as hard as them,
Yeah, I understand that. Yo, everybody. Time to get off schedule real quick. Guys, if you still like the grind and maybe you have an opportunity to go make a shit ton of money by doing so, actually real money, make sure you guys hit up EnLight.Energy. Alex Black is in Florida and they are crushing it. They are also able to work with you in any state that you're in. But it's pretty badass because the solar industry is blowing up and there is nothing stopping you from making like well over 6 figures to feed your family or your dogs or just you if you're alone. Sorry about it. Talk to yourself. I understand that there's a lot of people who don't necessarily are not even aware that they're part of that culture. It's just kind of the way it is for them. Like those guys in the 90s, not all of them had to have been like, girls can't sell. Some of them were just like, oh, I mean, I guess we're just in this organization, And so when they see you kicking ass, they're like, oh, I know what it takes to kick ass. And if she's kicking ass, badass. Like I always thought, even myself as a man that sold in 2012. So, at this point, girls are already better than men. So like women are already kicking ass every year. Like I was getting my ass whipped by Hannah Reesberg that summer, but I didn't, to me, it made sense because we're doing a job where it's completely performance based in the standpoint of like, if you go work, you're going to make it. Like it's going to work. It's just how quickly can you get better at it. And that it's like a skill. It's like any other skill. Right. So that for me, if a girl's kicking my ass, it just means she's working harder than me or she's figuring things out faster than I am. There's not because she's a woman. It's not because I'm a man. It has nothing to do with that. Where I was like, wow, my hat's off to you is because just from and this, I'm probably sure this is going to get me canceled someday. So I'm not trying to say it in the wrong way. So, but in deliveries, when we had to carry that tote around and it was like 60 pounds for 12 hours of deliveries. And at the end of the day, I mean, I'm 20 in my best fitness that I've ever been in my life. I'm strong as I've ever been. And I'm hurting from carrying this freaking tote around. And I know there's a girl in my org who weighs 110 pounds and she's carrying the same tote. And I'm like, wow, that is mad impressive that she not only kicked my ass in sales, but also is kicking my ass in deliveries, because this is where it gets physical. It's not a mental thing anymore. And so technically speaking, people who are stronger during the physical part of the summer should have an advantage because they're stronger, right? Nope. And I was blown away. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, how are they doing this? How is she like carrying this thing? It weighs half what she weighs. It only weighs a quarter of what I weigh. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so crazy.
No, that's how I feel when I see, like, if I'm trying to go running or something and I see a mom with the stroller with the 2 kids running faster than me. I'm like, how are you doing that?
How? That is so crazy. It's again, and I'm not trying to come off as like I'm a man and men are stronger. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. There's women out there who are way stronger than I am. I'm not right. I'm just saying, like, from a physical standpoint, if you just stood me next to, poor little Liz Brewer, who is maybe 110 pounds soaking wet, it's like, and you're like, these two people are going to carry a tote that weighs 60 pounds full of books for 12 hours for the next week. Who do you think is going to have the most back problems? It's me. It was me. My back hurt. So it was crazy.
You just made me remember, like, did you have a lot of people, because this happened to me, where like the beginning of the summer they were like one way, and then by the end of the summer they're just like, I mean, I remember people like losing houses, like when I'm delivering, where they're like, oh, I'm losing my house. And it's just, you get to see like life, I didn't even remember that until you started talking about deliveries.
Yeah. And a much broader point is, especially if you sold in the country, you got to know the community so well that like people got divorced.
Yeah.
While I was selling, right? So maybe at the beginning of the summer I sold and they were together, they were married, and then you're selling in a different part of the town and you hear that customer of yours got divorced. And so now you're kind of like in the town gossip somehow.
Yeah.
And then you go and deliver and you're like, so what house should I drop these off at? Like, it's just like things like that where people go through life. Naomi James, we had her on the show, and she had a family where she sold, and at the end of the summer, the son had murdered the family.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Crazy. And it was on the news. You pulled up the news article and everything. And she like, I'm like, that must have been traumatic for you. And so, yeah, it's no doubt that you remember that because you were a part of people's lives for a chunk of time. And it's so weird. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I'm wondering if that has to do with, like, I don't have any debt, right, in life. So it's like, I wonder if like, that's like, because I keep trying to trace back like stuff from Southwestern and stuff from Tom James and different things I've had and why I like do certain things. And I wonder if that's what it was, is remembering that when I'm delivering and people like losing houses, losing stuff, because of losing jobs, and things like that. So kind of interesting.
It's so weird. And then now, do you ever like go and think about it from like the further I've been away from it and the more I've grown up, right? I'm only 30, so I mean, I still have a lot of things to learn and how many kids, but like for me, like for example, if someone knocked on my door right now, I'd be like, what the hell are you doing knocking on my door? At noon on a Tuesday or whatever, like, and I'm like, oh, I would have been that dad that
Isn't
like
that
just
funny?
yelled at me for no reason. Like, it's so weird.
I still let people in though. I don't let them in, but I still like answer the door and I'll buy whatever they're selling. Usually one time I pretty much knew it was a scam. Like she's like, put it on my Venmo, but I still buy it because I just don't know if it's true or not true. But
that's interesting. That's super interesting. What's the last thing you bought door to door from a door to door?
Oh, and that I think was a scam. It was like some kind of like magazine. They were so good. They were so good. And I just was, I mean, it's almost like just for being a badass and coming to my door, even if you're like trying to like take money. I don't know. There's something about it that just is respectable.
You respect the craft. It's like, I respect the hustle. You still have to pull up. You still have the courage to knock on my door, even if it's a scam. You still had the ball, like ovaries if it was a woman. You still had the gut, like the ball. Badass. I should ask that question more often. Is if people buy stuff from door to door. I've never. I think that's the first time I've ever asked on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you bought anything?
Yeah. If anybody comes, nothing big. No Cutco people have come to my door. Nothing like that. there was a guy. It's so funny. During the pandemic, literally this would have been April. So I was living in a house with like 3 other book dudes. And that guy shows up and he's like, "Hey, we're doing windows." I think he was selling windows or something. And my brother and his wife own the house and we were renting from them. And so he shows up and he goes, "Hey, and he's like, "Hey, let me." And we were all coaching him, trying to tell him, we were giving him pre-approach. We gave him water. We gave him something to eat. Like the guy's like, "What the hell?" He's like, what did I just stumble upon?" I'm like, "Here's what you want to do. You want to go to this address. They're like 3 blocks away from here. They're the ones that own this house. If they want to get new windows, I can't. I wish I would. We would buy it right now. We'd all would say yes to you, but we don't own the house. But if you go to these people and you tell them we all sent you, and you tell them that you're selling door to door. And when you knock on the door, make sure you step back and turn sideways." And we get, he gave him the coaching.
So funny.
And I don't know if you ever caught him home or not, but that was the last time I remember someone knocking on my door. Which that doesn't happen as often as I wish, I guess.
Yeah. Huh.
I don't know. Damn. Oh, okay. Anyway, summer number 1, you're doing this in Grand Rapids. How do you know you want to come back?
Oh, the second summer.
Yeah.
And money. It was just money. And I loved it. Honestly, like I really liked it. I made money and I had new experiences, and it was, I don't want to say it was fun, but I mean, it was, if you talk to Mark Rao, I don't think he would say I had fun, because I called him on the payphone crying like at least once a day. But maybe that's why they didn't want women back then. No, I was kidding. I was like literally crying like once a day. And I remember stopping at the payphone and calling him, and he was so good and so encouraging. And it's so funny that he's still there. I still need to reach out to him because it'd be fun to reconnect. But anyway, yeah, it was like that's pretty much what I remember. And the mornings were fun. I remember going to the Bob's Big Boy, and we'd rub the belly of the Bob's Big Boy for good luck. And so that was a lot of fun. So I think, yeah, we added some fun elements to it. And then second summer just felt like, I think you get caught up in it, right? And then they got me to recruit other people. So then you're engaged all year and you're basically going back out again, before you even know it. And it gave me something else to like, I don't know, you feel like you belong somewhere. There was something about that too.
Yeah. It's like being in a fraternity or sorority.
Oh yeah. I think you're right. I think it is that. Yeah, totally. Like, and it's even better. Group. It's even better because like you've been through a shared experience, and you know that you're with people that are similar to you in different ways, but similar,
And you earned it. You all earned it.
Yeah.
You all went through that. You all cried. You all cried and called your parents on the payphone.
Exactly.
And had to knock for houses to live in.
Yeah.
And had different luck with that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. And then second summer I went to Iowa. And then I remember like I don't even remember when my car broke down there, like died, like in the middle of a cornfield somewhere. So like that was crazy. And that was hard. I wish I remember. I have to go back and like really think about what happened, because I'm like, I remember having to buy a new car. So that summer sucked because the money that like
yeah, there goes your profit.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is I love that this experience was the same, 94 or 68 or 2022. There's still book kids that, like, when you say your car broke down, every book kid that's ever sold books that would listen to that would go, "Oh, yeah, I know." Yeah. Like that we know what it's like.
Yeah.
It's so bananas. Well, dang, that is so phenomenal. I think this is a good time for us to start and talk about some ponytails. So for people who are listening who don't know, ponytails is usually the segment of our show. It's like usually the last 15 minutes where we get people to share and talk about their favorite stories or their most memorable things, or just closing thoughts on the impact that Southwestern had on them, still has on them, how, things that have been important to them. So for example, we've had people talk about, their favorite Sizzler stories and how fun that was. Some people have talked about how they met their spouse on here, or some people have talked about, the time that they almost quit but didn't, and that was the changing point in their life. And so I'll leave the mic open for you. You can take as much of time as you want with this, or you can be as detailed as you wish with this or not. But in your opinion, what would be your ponytail or two or whatever that that you still look back on and you go, that was the moment that changed my life, or this was something that was important to me, or that was just a really funny thing that happened to you? Do you have a couple of those, or one of those that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing that just comes to mind when you're saying that is, the moment when it's just raining and you're out selling anyway, and you're just not making excuses for anything, and you're really just realize, and then you're selling too. Like you're not just like standing there in the rain, you're actually like being productive, and just being able to shift your mindset to be able to get through whatever hard thing that you want to get through. And then that epiphany, I think that money epiphany really came to me then. And I sort of mentioned it already, but I think it's so significant that I want to mention it again. It's like just knowing that all I needed was this bag with 2 books in it and my voice, and to be able to hear no freaking a lot, and then I didn't even have to be good. I just had to like be who I was and be able to hear no and have something that I believed in to sell. And just knowing that that's something I could always go back to, like that idea of that concept. So no matter what business I want to open or what I want to do, like I'm always going to be able to provide for myself and not worry about where the money's going to come from, because money's abundant. And I think that's where that's what really comes to mind. And then the other thing, I don't know, I didn't mention this, and it's speaking to me right now, so I'll say it, is I remember, since I'm on the money topic, and I'm not saying money's everything, but I do think you can do a lot with money.
Yeah, of course.
And so,
and Mark Rouse said it's not the most important thing, but it's top 5.
Yeah. And so, so I think it's, I remember in both my summers, I was too nervous. I couldn't even go to the big brick houses, so I always just went to like the other houses. I never went to the big brick houses because I had this belief that the people in those houses were mean and jerks, right? Because those were the perceptions I had of money at that time. And then I think when I went to work for the sister company, Tom James, and I got to work with the C-level executives and the attorneys and the business owners and entrepreneurs, I got to see that they're freaking really cool people. And so my perception of money totally shifted. And I think that's really helped me in life, being able to like see where it was to then get the shift and just realize that, it's just all those limiting beliefs people have about certain things are just bullshit.
Yeah.
And, you just got to live your life and be who you are and just do the thing. There you go. I just did do the thing. See, and it wasn't even meant to do that. See, Andres, it's just coming out naturally.
It's a great name for a podcast. Great job. My gosh. Well, this is a good spot for us to wrap up here. I want to say, first of all, congratulations on your success. You sound so fired up about what you're doing, and I think it's really sweet. If you guys want to go check out Stacey's podcast, go to Do the Thing. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. That's where I listen to it anyway. You guys are probably on Spotify and a couple of different places as well. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can go find it. If you want to check out her book, what's the story about the book? When can we get the book, or how can we get this book?
It'll be out next year. End of next year.
End of next year, so keep an eye on it. But you could probably listen to the podcast and keep up to date on it. So that's a great way to do it. Another reason to listen to the podcast. If you have suggestions of guests or something like that, or you want to just get a hold of Stacey because maybe you sold in the same time frame, or you remember, something from Eagle Blitz or something about what she said, inspired you want to let her know, be sure you get a hold of her. Her email will be in the episode notes down below, so you can just click on the link or get a hold of her that way as well. But on that note, we will wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much. My name's Andres Gamboa, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.